Hey everyone. I recently spent about 5 hours in the stress test for Adrullan Online Adventures. I only recently found out about this game and jumped in to check it out, so today I want to share my initial impressions of the game. Adrullan Online Adventures, formerly known as Evercraft Online, has been in development since 2016, and the recent rebranding aims to better reflect the game's rich lore and unique world, moving away from the crafting centric connotations of the original name. The game draws inspiration from classic MMOs like EverQuest, emphasizing social interaction, strategic gameplay, and immersive exploration. From the community engagement during the testing to the consistent updates from the developers, it's clear that Adrulon has been a passion project for quite some time, slowly building a foundation for something special. Actually, playing the game felt surprisingly good. I played a paladin, my wife played a ranger, and our friend joined us playing a bard. While we only got to level 3 or 4, we already could tell a couple of things about the game. One, grouping is the way to go, and two, questing is both straightforward and powerful. Doing your class quests is important as it teaches you about your class and gives you a good amount of XP. There's no quest log with listed objectives, but there is a neat system to help you follow conversations. When talking to NPCs, some parts of their dialogue will be highlighted. These are key phrases you can repeat to them to progress the interaction, kind of like dialogue prompts in older MMOs. Even better, you can just click on the highlighted text in the chat bubble and your character will automatically say it. It makes interacting with NPCs smoother and more intuitive without breaking immersion. Just be sure to actually read what your quest giver tells you. I spent way too long looking for someone that I wasn't supposed to be looking for yet because I had only read the last thing the NPC told me. Another thing to note is that each of us got a repeatable quest from our class trainer, but it seems anyone can do these. For example, the Bard class trainer gave my friend a quest to get pristine null bones, but I was able to turn them in on my paladin and was getting a whole 8% of my level at level 3. Adrulon features a wide variety of classes and races, each with their own playstyle and abilities. I rolled a paladin, and even at low levels, I could feel the design intent: durable, supportive, and a bit reactive. My wife played a ranger, and our friend a bard, and all three classes played differently enough to feel unique rather than slight variations of each other. It's clear the game is encouraging group synergy early on. The Bard, for example, had a couple of songs that buffed the group, and apparently there's even a UI designed specifically for song weaving. I didn't dive into the full list of classes yet, but I'm already looking forward to trying another class next time. While I didn't do much crafting during my playtime, a friend of mine tried it out and had some great insights. Crafting seems like something that's worth investing in early, but it can be a bit time consuming. Tanning leather did take about a minute per piece, but you can queue up multiple crafts and step away while they process. The system includes refining materials, crafting gear, and even early access to powerful items if you put in the work. Although I didn't get to experiment with different crafting stations or high tier materials, it feels like crafting will play a meaningful role in the game's economy and progression. I'm curious to see how things like crafting mastery or rare recipe discovery factor in down the road. Agilon's visual style leans heavily into a blocky, voxel-based aesthetic that will instantly remind many players of Minecraft. Personally, as someone who spent plenty of time in Minecraft, I felt right at home with the style, but I can understand why others might be hesitant. On the surface, it might look like a game designed for kids. However, make no mistake, this game is very much made for adults who are nostalgic for the old school MMO experience. That's not to say it isn't kid friendly, though. I didn't come across any overly mature themes, but the core gameplay is deliberate, slow paced, and clearly designed for players seeking that classic challenge. It's less about flashy graphics and more about immersion, community, and thoughtful design. Cosmetically, I didn't see a ton of gear variety early on. Most of what I wore came from mob drops, and cloaks, even when equipped, didn't visually show up. That said, I suspect there are more customization options deeper into the game or in future tests. Performance during the test was surprisingly solid. I personally had very few frame rate issues on my setup, even while streaming. Interestingly, my friend who was playing a bard on a nearly identical machine did have some intermittent frame rate drops. It's unclear whether this is related to their hardware, drivers, or maybe even something class specific, but it is worth mentioning. What's really impressed me, though, was the server side performance. At one point, there were over 1,000 bots running alongside live players to stress test the system. Even with all that activity, I didn't notice any rubber banding, desync, or other server side hiccups. That speaks volumes about the backend stability and optimization in place already. By the end of the test, the server reached over 2,100 players and bots online at once, and it was still holding strong. That level of load balancing gives me confidence that Adrullan can support large-scale events and future expansions. Adrullan shares its EverQuest-inspired roots with other upcoming MMOs like Monsters and Memories and Pantheon Rise of the Fallen. If you're familiar with these games, I'd say it's closer to Monsters and Memories in the way it plays, especially at low levels where auto attack is your main source of damage for a while. The combat pacing and class interdependency felt very much in line with the more relaxed tactical style. It also shares the same sense of exploration where the world feels dangerous and progress is measured more by what you've learned than what level you've hit. Compared to Pantheon, Adrullan feels more relaxed and approachable. Pantheon leans into a more intense, high stakes experience with tight dungeon content, layered mechanics, and heavier emphasis on group dependency. Adrullan, by contrast, lets you dip into that old school feeling without demanding as much upfront. It's easier to jump in solo or as a small group and still make meaningful progress, which gives it a more flexible vibe early on. What makes Adrullan stand apart is the tone and accessibility. It feels like it's trying to carve out a space between these two extremes. It's nostalgic and group focused, like Monsters and Memories and Pantheon, but with a more inviting aesthetic and early gameplay loop that allows solo or duo players to make meaningful progress. The click to speak dialogue and searchable journal shows an attention to usability and even embraces old school sensibilities. If Monsters and Memories is trying to recreate the atmosphere of classic MMOs and Pantheon is aiming to modernize and expand it, Adrullan feels like it's trying to make that world approachable again without sacrificing what made it compelling to begin with. Overall, my first experience with Adrullan Online Adventures was positive. The game's emphasis on meaningful questing, combined with its classic MMO feel, makes it stand out in the current market. I had a great time exploring, experimenting, and seeing how the devs are handling server stress and polish at this stage. I'm definitely looking forward to the next test phase and seeing how the systems evolve, especially crafting and class progression. If you want to catch more of my adventures in Adrullan, be sure to follow me on Twitch, link in the description. Have a good one.